William Cuffay was one of the leaders of the Chartists, Britain's first working-class movement that advocated for universal male suffrage and other voting reforms. Born either in Kent, England, or on board a merchant ship from St. Kitts to a freed slave named Chatham Cuffay and an English woman from Kent named Juliana Fox, he slowly rose to the ranks of the leadership of the London branch of the Chartists. Cuffay was the oldest of 5 children that their parents, married in 1786, had together, although one of whom died in infancy. William was born in 1788. Described as having a delicate constitution, 4 foot 11 inches and disabled, he trained as a journeyman tailor and gained a reputation for being a good worker. Living in Gillingham, Kent, he moved to London in 1819. He was one of the 10,000 black people thought to have lived in London, although figures are not certain. The tailor sector was a notoriously known political trade. During his time, the trade included the likes of Francis Place, who in the 1820s famously played a part in getting the Anti-Trade Union Combination Acts repealed. These acts made trade unions and collective bargaining illegal. Another significant figure in his time was British Jamaican radical Thomas Spence, who served multiple prison terms. Cuffay only came to widespread attention when he joined the strike with fellow tailors in 1834. He did not join right away when it began on April 28th, but was persuaded by fellow co-workers to do so. They demanded a 10-hour workday from April to July and an 8-hour workday for the rest of the year, with a pay of 6 shillings and 5 pence a day. However, the strike collapsed and he was fired. He found it very hard to get a job afterwards. In 1839, he joined the Chartists, Britain's first working-class movement dedicated to fighting for better worker rights for working-class men, as well as suffrage rights. In the same year, he founded the Metropolitan Tailors Charter Association. A few weeks later, an armed uprising occurred in Newport by Chartists who demanded democracy and the right to vote, but it was suppressed by the British Army and all the ringleaders were arrested. In a subsequent meeting of the association, where Cuffay chaired, he moved a resolution in sympathy with those involved and protesting at the cruel, unjust and vindictive treatment of imprisoned Chartist leaders. This meeting was also reported in the Charter, a newspaper that was founded by the London Working Men's Association. In 1841, when the London Tailors became affiliated with the National Charter Association, he was one of the 3 who was nominated to serve the General Council. Cuffay was also elected to represent what was now called the Tailors National Charter Association on the Chartist County Council for London. His name began to appear regularly on the Northern Star as chair of the Tailors Union or reporting back from county meetings. By the end of the year, he chaired a meeting of the National Charter Association's General Council. Cuffay urged his fellow London tailors to support the 1842 petition in support of the Charter. The petition was introduced by the radical MP for Finsbury, Thomas Slingsby Duncombe, in the House of Commons on May 2, 1842. It was signed by 3,315,752 by the industrious classes of the country, as said by Duncombe, and broke down the numbers according to the constituencies he mentioned located across the UK. Also in his speech, he suggested that the government should pass into a law the document entitled the People's Charter. There were 6 demands of the People's Charter: a vote for every man aged 21 years and above, of sound mind and not undergoing punishment for a crime; the secret ballot to protect the elector in the exercise of his vote; no property qualification for members of parliament to allow the constituencies to return the man of their choice; payment of members enabling tradesmen, working men, or other persons of modest means to leave or interrupt their livelihood to attend to the interests of the nation; equal constituencies securing the same amount of representation for the same number of electors, instead of allowing less populous constituencies to have as much or more weight than larger ones; annual parliamentary elections, thus presenting the most effectual check to bribery and intimidation, since no purse could buy a constituency under a system of universal manhood suffrage in every 12 months. This was the second time a petition of this matter was presented to Parliament, after the first, signed by a third of those signatures, was rejected by Parliament. 1842 was also the year of the first ever general strike called the Plug Plot, initially orchestrated by miners in Staffordshire, but soon spread through Britain, affecting factories and mills in Yorkshire and Lancashire, and coal mines from Dundee to South Wales and Cornwall. The National Charter Association was thrown into crisis after its secretary John Campbell and most of its leadership was arrested, although it later emerged that the NCA was poorly managed and Campbell was accused of embezzlement. Subsequently, Cuffay and other London Chartists stepped in to take control temporarily and restore stability. Cuffay was well respected and served high positions. He was elected president of the London Chartists by acclamation and was the treasurer to the Metropolitan Delegate Council, where he and his third wife, Mary Ann Manville, was raising funds for Chartist prisoners. The following year, he was elected president of the board of directors of the new political and scientific institution, which meant he had to stand down from his position in the Metropolitan Council. The leadership of the Chartists was split into two political camps, the moderate moral force Chartists and the physical force Chartists. The moral force believed in the peaceful petitioning to Parliament and allying with middle-class radicals, whereas the physical force acknowledged the power of the organised workers. William Cuffay was a physical force Chartist. Physical force Chartists advocated for radical agitation and the use of mass strikes as a way of winning demands. The Northern Star newspaper was run by a physical force Chartist, Fergus O'Connor, who was Irish. He was also the first Chartist to be elected MP for Nottingham following the 1847 elections. He was also MP for Cork in Ireland back in the 1830s. To the London Chartists, he was the Revered Cuffay, and the only mentioning time of his skin colour was in a positive nature. A white working class friend of his described the first time he saw Cuffay spoke and said that he had unfeigned admiration upon the high intellectual forehead and animated features of this diminutive son of Africa's despised and injured race. The racism he suffered was mostly from bourgeois-backed magazines and newspapers who despised him and used racism to try and turn the white working class against him. One piece of bourgeois press called him half a nigger, which he bore unflinchingly. He even seemed to have glory in it. Cuffay showed his physical force ideology in play when he became one of the organisers of the large Chartist demonstration in Kensington Common on April 10, 1848. Many Chartists, especially the physical force, were inspired by the recent revolution that occurred in France at the time, as it led to the abolition of the monarchy. Chartism returned to its peak. Cuffay was given the job of organising the march, where protesters would march from Kensington Common to Parliament. This protest was taken seriously by the ruling class. The Home Secretary banned the protests, thousands of troops were sent to the capital, and Queen Victoria was taken to the Isle of Wight for safety. On that day, 100,000 workers were assembled in Kennington. However, the Chartists gave Parliament an advantage. Troops blocked bridges over the Thames, which prevented feeder marches from joining the main body and thus isolated. After that, the demonstration was abandoned. Cuffay found himself entangled in a conspiracy to spark a revolutionary uprising in London. He was unhappy with this strategy. The group was infiltrated with police spies and the majority were arrested. Cuffay was later arrested, tried alongside his comrades, and found guilty of levying war on the Queen. He was sentenced to penal transportation in Tasmania, Australia, but his activism did not stop there. He successfully campaigned against the Masters and Servants Law, which gave magistrates power to jail servants for 2 months if the master thought they were being lazy. His penal transportation lasted for 21 years, but he decided to stay in Australia. He worked as a tailor in Hobart. However, in 1869, he was confined to a sick ward due to ill health. In August 1870, Cuffay died penniless at the age of 82. The local newspaper wrote an obituary titled "Death of a Celebrity" and described him as being a fluent and effective speaker. He was always popular with the working classes. Cuffay died without any surviving children. His only daughter died soon after the death of his second wife at childbirth. Cuffay was married a total of 3 times. Despite no descendants, his legacy has been preserved in Black British history as an achievement to remember his contribution to working class suffrage. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it.